Good morning. My name is Aneta Rostkowska. I'm the director of the CCA Temporary Gallery in Cologne, and I'm very happy to start this conversation between Ekaterina Degot, the director of Steirischer Herbst Festival in Graz, and the performance duo Katze und Krieg. This conversation is part of a whole sequence of encounters in which we discuss selected performances of Katze und Krieg with our guests. And today we are super happy that Ekaterina Degot kindly agreed to talk to us. In the first part, the artist will present several performances, and then we will talk about them. So I pass to Katze und Krieg.
Yeah, thank you very much, Aneta, for the introduction. We will present three past works of Katze und Krieg. All works are regarding the theme dealing with capitalistic structures. So I will start now with the first. One moment, with the first work that I want to present. I will show you a picture to give kind of an image to you. The first work I want to present is called Gold Everywhere, in German, In allem Gold. And we developed this performance 2012 during our residency at Castle Laudon close to Vienna in Austria, when we were invited from the Federal Ministry of Austria. After that, 1 year, we were also showing the performance on 3 different festivals. One at Unitea Festival in Frankfurt-Oder-Slowitsch, then another time during the festival Fremdgehen in Cologne, and also at the Inver-City Festival in Duisburg and Oberhausen. So I will stop the Bildschirmfreigabe because I want to talk now a little bit how we developed the performance and what are important parts from us for the performance. So the performance kind of emerged from the circumstances we were living, me and Julia, in these times in 2012. So first of all, it was like a busy time. We were on a lot of festivals. We were developing projects, several projects at the same time. So when we finally came to the residence in Austria, it was kind of a refuge where we had more time and more space, which was kind of decelerating us. Then a second thing, what was important for the performance was that we were surrounded by the castle of Laudon, which triggered like a feeling in us of splendor and dignity. And we also intensified these feelings by wearing ball gowns, which, if you have ever worn some of those ball gowns, it makes also the movements a lot more slowlier, because we have this corsage and the big skirt. And the last thing, what also was kind of an important circumstance for developing the performance, was that this residency where we developed the performance was in nature. It was not in the city of Vienna, but in the outskirts, and we were kind of surrounded by trees, woods, and nature, which had also a very calming effect on us. So this deceleration, this calmness around us was kind of a contrast to our trips we once in a while took to Vienna when we went shopping there. And especially when we went in the supermarket, it was kind of 2 worlds are colliding, or 2 times also are colliding. It was the time of the supermarket where the people all were rushing, like the employees, they wanted to cash up the people as fast as possible to make more profit for the company, and the customers, they had also lots of things to do after the going to the supermarket. So they were also very fast doing their routine there. And there we were like entering with our ball gowns in a very calm day, very calm and slowed down way. So this was one important contrast that we wanted to show in the performance called Everywhere, and also a contrast of consciousnesses, because when being so much slowed down, we could feel very much or get more or give more attention to our surrounding as well to ourselves, to our body. So we're very much more connected to our feelings and what was going on. And this was kind of also a contrast to what we were witnessing or observing from the people around us, especially in the supermarket, who were like on their routine, trying to do as fast as possible their shopping. And also like the supermarket is not that kind of nice place to be. So they were trying to be take as less time as possible to be there. So the dramaturgy of the performance that we developed out of all these experiences was that we are in our ball gowns, made up very beautifully. We took a lot of time also to make up our hair, that we are approaching the supermarket, entering, then going to the shelf where the cakes are, taking the cake, going to the cash, paying for the cake, leaving the supermarket, sitting down with the cake on the sidewalk, and then eating from the cake, and at the end also inviting passersby and our audience to eat with us this cake. And like I mentioned, now that we had an audience with us who could follow our intervention in the supermarket, they had also microphones. Not microphones, they had headphones and an MP3 player with a very slowed down calm music. So they could listen to music while watching us. And this watching us was like, I would say they could not see so many things just in watching us, because actually we're doing very less or very little. But what they mostly were watching too were the reactions of our surrounding and our environment, which were kind of sometimes really extreme. It was like either people were really finding us beautiful, making commentaries to us, look, the two ladies, how beautiful they are, and or even coming into our time, behaving also slowly with us, walking slowly with us, or the people felt very annoyed because we were getting in their way and they wanted to be faster, like the cash people, for example, or the employees of the supermarket. They once also opened up another cash so that we are not blocking the other people from getting cashed up faster. Or a cash lady once also was, or it was not happening just once, it was happening more than once, that she was already cashing up the people behind us in line before we gave her the money, because we were so slowly. And the place of like where we mostly intervened was the Aldi, which is called in Austria the Hofer, because we found out that this discounter, they are trained, the employees, to be the most fastest when cashing up. So now I would like to give you, would like to show you the video documentation of the premiere that we did 2012 in Vienna.
bin ganz ehrlich. Hallo, ja, was ist das?
Kartoffeln. Und wie das ist noch abgefallen. Lili, Camilla. Camilla. Sie sind schnell weiter. Sie geht so
I just want to make a small remark now on how we were dealing with capitalistic structures. How was our way to deal with capitalistic structures in this performance called Everywhere? It was that we are were founding an alternative space inside this capitalistic structure, let's say inside the supermarket. In our case, it was another timing that we were proposing, that we were living, and we were, and this was a space that could inspire the surrounding, the people around us to behave differently, or also open up new possibilities to be, but also it was kind of disturbing the existing space. Our goal in the performance was to not get infected so much by the hectic of this already existing space, just to intervene or stay with the time where which we took with us into the space, but also, of course, to just stay open and aware to everything what was around us. Now I give, now Julia, you can start with the second word.
We don't hear you, you have to unmute yourself.
Hi. Yes, hello. I will present the work Money, Experience, Satisfaction Now. I will talk about the performance Money, Experience, Satisfaction Now. It's a store that sells performances designed to fulfill individual needs. We produced and showed it 2015 in Cologne, and it happened in cooperation with Sommerblut Festival, and the shop was opened for 2 weeks. Yeah, in Cologne, the city we're living in, as lots of cities, the city center is very dominated by a consume culture. There are mainly buildings for shopping and only few places to sit or come together without paying money for it. But we are both not so much into material objects or shopping, and we more try to save money, maybe, yeah, live minimalistic, but not in a stylish way, more like we find things on the street and try to reuse things, or we were not so much into the shopping things. So as we are not so much participating in this consuming culture, we feel as if the city center is not really designed for us. But at the same time, we have to cross it, even on a daily basis, to get to our work. But we're even not allowed to go through it by bike. So all the time, we are confronted with a structure which takes such a huge space in the city. Additionally to this whole problem which is connected to shopping as a problem, as there are not so many materials in this world as people shop. So we asked ourselves, why do other people use this space so lightly and are buying so much? And we guess to fulfill their needs. But we doubt if material things can really fulfill needs on the long-term way. So our thesis, which is behind, is a little bit people seem to get into shopping addiction as a substitute satisfaction. And we ask ourselves, is there no other way to satisfy one needs? And with these thoughts in our mind, we developed a different utopian shop in the city center. A shop that sells participatory performances that bring the buyer closer to the fulfillment of his or her true needs. And to have a flourishing shop, we ask ourselves, how could we sell our product and reach our customers? And of course, it is by copying all the advertisement and selling strategies we have observed in the consume culture of capitalistic system we are living in. So we used existing marketing strategies and even tried to exaggerate them a bit. Here you see our design, which we try to use consistently. So we have a kind of a branding. And also before we opened our shop, we did a lot of advertisement. We sent emails on a daily basis, and quite annoying emails. They were even blinking like that all the time. And in these emails, we made exaggerated promises like, you need more love, you can buy it in 9 days, buy what you need, buy your total satisfaction, you can have it for only €4.99. So also this price is quite seductive. And as you maybe realized, our language we choose was quite absolute, also something we saw in advertisement, which is which we are surrounded by. So we finally opened up a shop at Hohe Straße in Cologne, where you can just find lots of shops everywhere. So it was also quite difficult to get one. And here we continued imitating a shop. Like we had this huge sign in our branding. We had a flickering light in the back. We were also wearing this, we called it like business dresses, and we have these signs where we said like, we will sell this. And we also had a jingle. I play right now, can you hear it? Money, experience, satisfaction, So, oh, sorry, I'm so quite a little bit religious even, or we played with this, and we sonicated the public space just in front of the shop until the police came, because this was a little bit too much to annoy the environment with the sound. Yeah, and we did all this to get attention. Here on the left, you see our offer. Like, give me your hand, and on the right you see the price, like also quite seductive prices, and under the title it's like a little bit the description you can buy, like a performance for more trusting in this case. And we had all these performances which try to fulfill general needs like relaxation, love, freedom, exploration, joy, and so on. And the idea was, after the customer buy a performance, it will immediately take place right in the urban shopping district around the shop. So after the customer bought a performance, we made a little ritual with the client to somehow transform the situation. And then we walked together in silence to a spot even more in the heart of the city center. And we there explained to the buyer what we will do now. We set an alarm clock, and then we did a very specific action depending on the choice of the buyer. So, for example, now it's, so here we get the money for buying the performance. And for example, Deep Love was a performance where we hugged 3 minutes, threesome for 8 minutes. So also this, to do a specific action for a period of time was important to have a, to have a result, I would say, or to have an effect, or now it's not going on. Okay. Or we had the animal. We were screaming and shaking a thing for 5 minutes. And or we had strange countries. Oh, I was a little bit fast now. A performance for exploration. We were like going into things and buildings together. Or a performance for more joy. We were hopping together and screaming and running through shops like a little child having fun, I would say. And Clouds in Heaven, a performance for more relaxation. We were lying down at a mattress, making together a meditation for 10 minutes or for 11 minutes. Unfortunately, our offer was quite well received. We were very busy during our entire opening hours. So what we hoped would psychologically happen with the person who participated was, in a way, the people became part of our interventions by choosing a certain action and paying for it. And our idea is, if you pay for something, you invest, you put energy into it, so you take it more seriously. And that helps for an inner involvement. And with this set of mind, you are doing the action, which is thematically quite far away from usual shopping culture. It can even be seen as a demonstration against hyperbolic consumerism and for more awareness for basal needs. Of course, the actions we did with the customers are only exemplary for love or relaxation or so. So I don't think you have a little performance for more love for 8 minutes and then your whole life is changed. But by doing so, by setting an example, the people already had a tiny experience for the fulfillment of their needs. And this experience hopefully helps to resonate with more fulfillment of their needs further on in life. It's maybe a little bit esoteric idea or an idea like when you have problems in your life, you choose to have little experiences in the direction you want to go to change your life. So one answer, how to deal with capitalistic structure, we propose with this work is to make demonstrative actions against the consumer structure, but at the same time make actions that transform yourself, and do this action with your own body to have an effect. Make this action which try to bring you into an alignment with the fulfillment of your personal needs. And another more general answer, how to deal with capitalistic structure, maybe especially as an artist, use a strategy of imitating and exaggerating even the patterns of consumer culture in a quite playful way, but meanwhile implement your own alternative ideas. And now I pass on to Ekaterina again.
Yeah, I will show you now the last performative work that we wanted to present regarding the theme dealing with capitalistic structure. It is called Riding the Cheater. It's an after-work performance tutorial. Riding the Cheater we developed 2018 in Cologne and showed the performance there. And 1 year later, 2019, we were again showing the performance in the mark of the Academy of the Impulse Theater Festival in Mülheim an der Ruhr. Kind of the performance again emerged from the circumstances we were living in 2018. So both of us acquired or got much more tasks in this year, but the time we had to take care of these tasks and also longings and needs did not increase. So in my case, I gave birth to my first child, and I had, next to my own artistic work and the work together with Julia as Katze and Krieg, I had to get used to be a family now and also do the care for the child. And Julia, she was next to the work also with Katze and Krieg. She was working for the university. She was there creating a symposia and designing a curricula for teachers, and went on residencies. And so both of us were like uploaded with a lot of tasks. Yeah, and as I already said, the time did not increase. And we felt, or we found that our circumstance or our private life now is very much reflected in our technologized, globalized present that we are living in, kind of a turbo capitalism, which we are born into it, where we are kind of not able really to escape from it. We are also creating it or recreating it, and it has very much influences in our life. So this system calls us for more self-optimization, more efficiency, more mobility, more flexibility, and so on. Also it awakens more love, more luxury, or more free time, more fitness, more family, more success, and so on. So our question in this time was, how can we do justice to all our longings when our time is limited? Of course, we could like do less, cut back, or do nothing, but we could also do all the things that we wanted to do in the time we have, but how? So for the performance, Riding the Cheater, we created a strategy that makes this possible to do more in less time. And the strategies were based on being prepared very well to then do the actions very fast, being able to do the actions very fast, do multitasking, do things more accelerated, using the urban structures that we find around us, and don't care anymore about privacy. For the audience of Riding the Cheater, we prepared an applied tutorial. They could, the time of the performance was set for around at 6 o'clock. So it was the after work time, and exemplary. We were demonstrating to the audience the strategies that we needed to fulfill our needs that we have after work. In our case, it was to do fitness, to relax, to prepare our own healthy food, to go shopping, to eat, and also to connect with people. And our audience was kind of following us on our way through the city while trying to fulfill these needs within 1 hour, learning from us the strategies that we were demonstrating to them. I give now like 3 examples of the strategy we were showing to our audience. Like one strategy was dress and walk, where we were dressing at the same time as we were walking. So this strategy was saving us a lot of time, because we did not need to go home to dress. So we would get rid of privacy. We just did it in public space. And also we could already advance to the place where we want to go. Another strategy was Fippen, it's called. It was a combination of fitness and shopping. And there, for this, we were using the supermarket, again, as a structure. We were using it as our fitness center, actually, and shopping the goods that we needed to for our meal. We were using, for example, the milk or the water as our fitness instruments, and we're doing our workout right inside the supermarket. So also there we were combining 2 things that we wanted to do, and were like could do more things in less time, because we don't need to go to the fitness center and then to go shopping. And the last strategy I want to talk about now is the strategy make use of, where we use the McDonald's as an infrastructure to design or to prepare our own food there. So we also did not need to go home to our own kitchen to prepare our food. We just were using the place that we found there in the urban space. And now I can give you an insight of the documentation of the performance, how it happened in Cologne in 2018.
Wir kommen von der Arbeit, sind auf dem Weg und wollen etwas für unseren Körper tun. Wir wollen Fitness machen, aber haben dafür noch die falschen Klamotten an. Wie können wir das in kürzester Zeit erledigen? Mit unserer ersten Strategy, Dress and Walk. Bei Dress and Walk kombinieren wir zwei Dinge und machen sie gleichzeitig, und zwar umziehen und gehen, was uns wertvolle Zeit spart. Let's start Dress and Walk.
Wir sehen uns nach einem gesunden, fitten, schlanken, attraktiven, stylischen, gelenkigen, fitten Körper. Dafür sollten wir an ihm arbeiten, ihn stählen. Gleichzeitig jedoch wollen wir auch einkaufen, um uns unser Essen zuzubereiten. Was können wir da tun? Unsere zweite Strategy. Fippen. Bei Fippen kombinieren wir Fitness mit Shoppen, indem wir nicht extra ein Fitnessstudio aufsuchen, sondern unsere Übungen gleich hier vor Ort machen, sparen wir wertvolle Zeit durch den vermiedenen Ortswechsel. Let's start Fippen.
Und 9. Und wir gehen zur Kresse.
Und 1 und 2 und 3 und 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Und halten den Frischkäse in die Höhe. Schön, dass man das Produkt auch sehen kann. 2. Gut absetzen. 3. Und ab damit in den Korb. Und weiter geht's.
Wir gehen mit dem Sidekick zur Wasserflasche. Und 1, 2, 3,
12, 13, 14, 15,
16,
17, 18, 19, 20. Und Wasserflasche in den Korb.
yeah!
Auf geht's zur Kasse im Hauptsassar.
Wir starten den Kassenentspurt. Wir trippeln auf der Stelle. Legen noch ein Cut. Ich werde bezahlen, Julia. Du
Ich
wirst
packe ein.
30, 32, 30, 39, 40, schneller. 41, 42, 41, 42, 43, 44, 46. Und wir packen ein. Ich nehme das Rückgriff und die Kassenbau. Und danke! Wir sind verschwitzt und möchten eigentlich für den weiteren Abend sauber und frisch sein. Wir möchten uns reinigen und sauber machen. Wie können wir das in kürzester Zeit hier mitten in der Stadt erledigen? Mit unserer dritten Strategy, Clean to Go.
Beim Gehweg Relax investieren wir 1 Minute unserer wertvollen Zeit, um eine Pause zu machen. Wir sehen das als Investition, um danach wieder wach und möglichst effizient und klar sich unseren Aufgaben zu stellen. Das Besondere beim Gehweg Relax ist, dass es ganz einfach mit einfachen Utensilien möglich ist, den Raum für sich einzurichten und zu nehmen und ihn jederzeit und überall in der Stadt durchzuführen.
Wir sind tiefenentspannt und denken jetzt langsam ans Abendessen. Wir möchten es zubereiten, aber wir sind noch in den Fitnessklamotten. Wir wollen aber fürs Abendessen auch schick ausschauen. Daher zeigen wir euch noch einmal die erste Strategy, Dress and Walk.
Wir wünschen uns ein bewusstes, gesundes, selbstbestimmtes Leben. Um dem gerecht zu werden, bietet es sich an, sein Essen selbst zuzubereiten. Gleichzeitig haben wir ja nicht ewig Zeit dafür. Außerdem befinden wir uns mitten in der Stadt. Was kann uns helfen? Unsere 5. Strategy, Make Use of. Bei Make Use of benutzen wir den McDonald's, um uns dort unser eigenes Abendessen zuzubereiten. Dadurch, dass wir nicht extra nach Hause gehen, sondern einfach Infrastrukturen, die uns zur Verfügung stehen, für unsere eigenen Zwecke nutzen, ist es uns möglich, ein gesundes, bewusstes Essen zuzubereiten und das sogar selbstbestimmt. Bei Make Use of seid ihr herzlich eingeladen mitzumachen. Wir werden jetzt gleich vorgehen und würden euch bitten, das einfach nachzutun. Wir holen uns 4 Servietten, ein Pommes-Holzstäbchen und ein Tütchen Salz, ein Tütchen Pfeffer von der Kasse und suchen uns dann einen Tisch zur Zubereitung. Let's start Make Use of.
Beim Make Use of bitte 2 Servietten vor sich legen und 2 Servietten und das Salz und das Pfeffer zur Seite. Und nehmen einen kräftigen Schlag vom Exquiser Fittlein und bestreichen damit das Brötchen. Unser Abendessen ist jetzt ready to eat, aber ein Bedürfnis ist noch offen. Und zwar, wir haben das Bedürfnis, uns noch mit dem anderen Menschen zu socialisen, in Kontakt zu gehen, in Verbindung zu treten. Dafür haben wir euch diese Zettelchen ausgeteilt und zeigen euch jetzt unsere letzte Strategy, und zwar Quickie Connecti. Bei Quickie Connecti werdet ihr diesen Menschen neben euch sein Brötchen füttern, während er euch eine Frage oder alle Fragen stellen, die auf diesen Zettelchen stehen. Diese Handlung des intimen Fütterns als auch die direkte und persönliche Frage umgehen diesen zeitraubenden Smalltalk und bringen uns auf schnelle Weise mit dem anderen sehr, sehr nahe.
Our way on dealing with the capitalistic structure in this performance, riding the cheetah, was to kind of oppose it by intervening with its own exaggeration. So we were taking our own capitalistic behavior to its absurdity and were intervening with it in the structure again. So and by this we developed all these strategies to be really, really faster in less time. So kind of like that, we were succeeding. We could do all the things we wanted to do in less time, but also show how crazy our times are nowadays. And so now I guess we are finished with this presentation of these 3 works and are curious for feedback or your questions, Ekaterina.
So thank you very much. It was all very interesting and I laughed a lot, especially towards the end. Congratulations with that, very various practice. What I was thinking, looking at it, is about public space. As a curator, I'm interested in public space very much, and you work in public space as in outdoor. And I was thinking, what is this capitalist public space? So you are working often in supermarkets, in those consumerist public space, and probably that's what capitalist public space actually is. When we say public space, we usually imagine the Greek agora, a representation of democracy, of political participation. That's always our idea of public space, but it becomes a fantasy. So every public space is a square, let's say, in every city represents one or another sort of political fantasy. For instance, the one in Cologne, the most important one near the Dome, is, as you know very well, is an artificial reconstruction of medieval square, which was built with the idea of this, not Greek agora, but medieval situation, which is bringing people from different classes together. And it's important that the role of art as some sort of acrobats or, fire eaters was already kind of integrated. At every medieval city, there is such a place where like those actors or performers are supposed to appear, but in Cologne it's very artificial, and it's clear that the role of art in that thing is very important. Of course, it's also, those fantasies are very recognizable in socialist public space, which is huge. Like I can immediately recognize kind of the legacy of GDR in Alexanderplatz or other places where like Karl Marx Alley or Marszałkowska in Warsaw, where there is the huge space, but it's a fantasy of big amount of people. So this is, of course, it's also related to the notion that land was free. In Jakarta, I once have seen a museum which was big.
We don't hear you. Oh, okay.
You don't hear me?
I think we haven't heard the previous sentence in Jakarta. Okay.
Do you hear me now? That might be my internet, but it seems it's okay. In Jakarta, there is a museum which is huge, enormous in itself, also surrounded by enormous territory, which is fenced. And around it, there is also an enormous square. And just one side of this fence is 1.5 kilometers. And the entrance is only from one side. So I found myself once there, so not really knowing where the entrance is. So that's the idea of a public space that represents a fantasy. So what sort of fantasy is represented in capitalist public space? It seems like there are no fantasies of that kind or of that scale. It's all concentrated on the fantasies of consumerism, on the amount of the supermarket is the ultimate public space of capitalism, because there is a huge choice. And this is why it also so easily goes into digital space, because this choice is easily represented and even for us more comfortable to scroll. Willem Flusser once said, before the advance of internet was already there, but cell phones were not. He died before they came, but he wrote that in medieval times, to learn about the news, you had to go to the main square of the town and listen to someone like shouting that something happened. But now you have to go home and switch your computer, and then you will learn what is going on. And on the main square, you will learn nothing. It's to some extent still the case. You don't have to go home. You can go into your head and into your cell phone. So this is all extremely fragmented. digitized, consumerized, and we are living in an interesting times. And of course, what is also striking about your performances, that it all happened before the pandemics. And of course, it's interesting to ask ourselves how the pandemics actually affected us and our public space. And I think it did, even if it seems to return, at least in Europe, kind of to normality, and in China, it returns to the like autocratic nightmare. But still, I think we went through very different feeling of public space. First as potentially dangerous, like every human contact and being among people was seen as dangerous. Then it was deserted, that was strange. And then it became, and still is actually, controlled. So this, for me, as someone who organizes festivals, and I imagine for you as well, that was a big problem on the practical level, on the conceptual, and even on the political level, when the public space is so incredibly fenced and controlled, and there are different zones where different people are allowed according to the documents, and nobody even sees it as a problem. Nobody sees it as something, you know, to talk about. Okay, these times kind of gone, but not completely. But I think what happened is also what you are addressing is a strong merging of private and public. It's already in your performances, but it happened even stronger with this advent of working from home. It's not really clear now where is the border. And what also happened, I think, it's depoliticizing of public space. You know, the previous times of humanity was this, you know, idealism of Occupy, Arab Spring, all this is how we were thinking public space maybe 10 years ago. But now we're thinking it very differently, and actually people are finding refuge in nature, and nothing against nature, but I think it's also a sign of depoliticizing. Kind of, let's find finally some, you know, peace and quiet after all this politics. So this is something going on with our public spaces, and it's interesting to address it, and you already see it in your performances, you see it even before. And you are right to say that you are addressing this capitalism with two very different strategies. That was actually my question, but you answered it, that you understand it, that on the one hand, you go through this grotesquely mimicking alienation or staging those, you know, speeding up. And on the other hand, sometimes you offer an alternative, a space. And these two strategies, they actually exist still in contemporary world, but maybe we are going more into art offering spaces of alternative spaces, but I don't know how that, you know, how we can rely on those alternative spaces, but you do both of it. As a curator, and this here, I would be interested to also to hear Aneta's experience. I'm working a lot in public space, as we don't have, for the Steirischer Herbst, we do not have our own exhibition spaces normally, and I'm interested in addressing those public spaces. In Graz, I don't know if you're familiar with it, architects, of which there is a lot here in Graz, always complain that Graz has no squares, like no real squares in the sense like Place de la Concorde, nothing like that, or Trafalgar Square. So what exists in this rural Austria actually are streets, like village streets, that at some point that become a little bit wider, for a market, weekly market, and this is called square. This is what is Hauptplatz in Graz. This is what most of the squares in Graz are, and people are complaining, oh, this is like not modern enough. But I find it also real, because those, you know, Place de la Concorde type squares, they represent a fantasy, as I said. And those squares, they represent reality. This is people, this is where people moving on their everyday life, they're taking a tram, they're going to the market. So this is the reality of it. And this is also makes it interesting for me. Working with artists, here I would be interested to hear your opinion. I was often, you know, talking to artists, and artists were starting talking about a work in public space in terms of being invisible. So many artists actually wanted to be invisible. So let's do something that happens somewhere in the corner and nobody will notice it. And that will be the point. And I must say, as a festival director and as a curator, I'm not always for that. So I was trying to understand why it is so. And in contemporary art, like visual arts fields, there is something which is, I would call like phobia of audience. There is some sort of a like protest or Ablehnung, resistance to a more theatrical situation where like you are confronting the audience somehow, or even the audience is participating. In theater, on the other hand, sometimes it's not reflected enough. Yeah, in theater, it's a very natural thing to do that you have audience. I'm always saying that the difference between visual arts and theater is if for a theater performance, if nobody came, for instance, sorry, if nobody came for the performance will not take place, if I understand right. But this is not the case for visual arts. Like an exhibition will open if there is nobody, and sometimes even a performance. So there are very different approaches. I'm trying to work somehow, I wouldn't even say in between, like to engaging and embracing different strategies here. I'm interested in the figure of a passerby. I think you also mentioned it. It's an interesting figure, someone who is already there, but does not know that this is art, does not know what is happening, what happened to this person. Does he or she even sees the performance? How can we somehow engage him, or maybe not? Sometimes they're becoming part of photos and videos. So that's this passerby, someone who is rushing, to take the train or to buy groceries. It's an interesting figure. And, the classical figure of modernism, as you know, the flaneur of Baudelaire. Of course, and the flaneur is, if you remember, is the one what is he doing? He's watching, actually, he's looking at the vitrines. So that's the whole point. This is the early consumerist display, these early passages that were built in Paris, and he can walk and look at this display, and of course also look at people, but mostly this capitalist display. I don't know if we have time to be a flaneur anymore. We are all rushing somewhere. This is why maybe not and maybe we're also losing the sense of observation because we have no time for that, but I'm missing it, I must say. But so the passerby, the someone who's somewhere, after watching the first, reading your descriptions, and that's very interesting and opens up.
I had problems with this video at the moment.
I think the connection was not good.
What was your last
maybe you could repeat. I'm really sorry.
Well, that's like I was speaking about the figure of a pastor. If you heard this, like which plays somehow the figure of flan to spend time just looking around. And the nice figure, but probably the figure of our times is the one who is how to involve or not this figure in a performance that is taking place in public space.
I think we have some connection trouble, but I understood what you said.
Yeah,
should I answer? Please.
I'm finishing with a question actually to all of you. How do you see with those works in public space, the audience? Who is the audience of it? Is there, because I see, of course, as we all see, there are people who know what's going on. And how do I recognize them? Because they are smiling. They are smiling because, of course, they like it. They know what's going on. They appreciate this disruption that you are. That's, of course, great when you are so slow. And this is very Viennese, of course, because as you know very well, in Austria, people still live like on two levels. So they live in contemporary world, but at the same time, there are those ball gowns, and they're for real, and people really having them in the closets. And they also this, adel, this, even if it was kind of banned in 1919, in reality, the how do they call you in English? The nobility, they do exist. Like, so you live at the same time in contemporary world and in, like, I don't know, 17th century at the same time. So this disruption was great, and there were people, of course, who knew what's going on. And interesting, how do you see the audience of people who did not know what is going on, and how did they react to that?
Mostly it's kind of that we have this two audience that you mentioned. We have this audience that we take from the beginning with us, who get the whole narrative, the whole story, and who follow us through a whole sequence of the performance. And then there is this passers-by that we meet that sometimes follow as well, a little bit more longer time because they get interested, but mostly they just get to know our action because we are interacting with them, or they are observing us. And I would say that mostly our actions are really not high leveled, not so complicated to understand, that if people who don't get the story are watching us or are witnessing us, they get an image that still could inspire them if they are not like if they take the time for it to go into it, or to see it, or to understand it perhaps, or they are just kind of, for our internal audience, let's say, they are just like a part of our Bühnenbild, how to say it in English?
Scenography?
Yeah.
No, not
yeah.
so.
So I would say
stage design kind of.
Yeah. And we are also not so much in these performances. You see us also wearing microphones and sometimes loudspeakers. So it's also most of the time clear that we are not privately acting there in public space. So it's also clear that we have also this audience with us. So this is kind of a special moment in public space. So this can also be witnessed, and we are not hiding it. We're not making invisible theater or something like that. We are really showing off that we are on another level, let's say, not another level, in another state, perhaps. So I think something can be understood also if you are just getting just a glimpse of us passing by.
Yeah, but maybe to say it in Ekaterina's words, I think maybe for a flaneur could like really participate in the performance, because this person has time to take their own time to understand what's going on, and the passersby maybe is reduced to the role of a stage design or stage statist. I don't know the word in English, statist, like
Statist, yeah.
But on the other hand, you also have many performances where you really interact with audience. And okay, these three maybe are of a different kind, but actually what kind of has drawn me to your performance was the interaction with random passersby. Like there is this performance where you try to seduce people in public space, yeah, or there is this performance playing around where you play in the streets and use found objects and engage people in the play. And I always, actually, when I think about your practice, I think you're like masters of this kind of conversations with strangers. And I always found it very captivating how you do it. And one of my discoveries during your performances was that it's actually relatively easy to talk people in public space, at least for you, like to maybe white, beautiful woman. Yeah, we should not forget about it. But somehow, what I also noticed that people really stayed with you. Yeah, there were like some performances where people, they basically didn't want to go away because something was happening. And then like one guy, I think in this seduction performance, he then, I think, Julia, you invited him to go on to family celebration with you because you were afraid of confronting your family that will ask you like some difficult questions about your private life, and you were looking for someone to go with you, I remember. So that sometimes these interactions, they are a bit longer than the performance itself. So I had the feeling that you actually don't have this phobia of audience. I remember you in the performance Before We Die, where you kind of think about things you want to do before you die. I think it was in this one when you was even entering and invited to private apartments to do something there, and this was happening spontaneously through encounters on the street. But in this performance that we saw today, I also had the feeling that I worked also in public space, and we had this festival in Krakow of our public art that I first wrote about and then participated in, and I noticed that it's really like a skill to do a good public artwork, that it needs to have some kind of accessibility, that people that don't know much about contemporary art could access it. But of course, we also want to have depth, and we want to have several layers. Yeah, and I had the feeling that in your performance, you managed to have both. Yeah, that they work very well. They are relatively simple. That's why for some of the contemporary art juries, it was not complex enough, but the complexity also reveals itself during the performance in these interactions and how the conversations are being held. So I had the feeling that you actually do both. Yeah, but you need like some kind of a simplicity, I think, at least in this first encounter, that can attract the audience. And I remember in many performances, people were asking, like the passersby were asking the group, because they saw that there are some people that stay longer with you, and they were asking us, what is it? And I remember even distributing some flyers during the performers, or telling people it's what it is. So definitely there was also like basically your audience is explaining, this kind of a more expert audience, or the one that signed up for the performance, is explaining the performance to the others. That was also happening in some of them. So that's also an interesting way of engaging, I think, the audience, if they become like mediators of your work while the performance is still happening. Yeah.
And sometimes they were even sharing their headphones with someone passionate to give them an insight of the performance. But that's interesting because that's true that we are very good perhaps to take the passersby out of their capitalistic rushing structure to bring them in our time or in our play or our theme. But it's interesting that mostly children, they are reacting the easiest or the strongest naturally to us, because they are not already in this rhythm. So they are much more seeing us, I think. Like you saw in the video in I'm Gold Everywhere, it was like the children who understood what we are doing, being very slowly, and they also were acting with us, being slowly and doing like as if they are princesses or stuff or something like that.
But concerning capitalistic structures, I also thought there is this, what I think Ekaterina identified it very rightly, that there are these two strategies, this mimicking alienation, or maybe we can use even this over-identification concept, I don't know, in this context, and then offering alternatives. And I think, probably the second one is more difficult, but you somehow, were switching between the both, I would say, in different performances. But I was asking myself, how to undermine this more strongly. And that's maybe also, if you will, you will continue your work in future, because we also use these conversations to inspire your future work. Yes, I was kind of thinking what is like the next step in it, because I think you are very often enacting this kind of something that sociologists call a therapeutic culture, or a culture of individualism, this culture of self-fulfillment. Yeah, and there are, like, sociologists really trace how it developed, that it became so obvious that we have to fulfill our desires, our needs, and before it was about, the self was constructed in a different way. It was like fulfilling some societal goals, like having some kind of a vocation, or and it's interesting, I think could be interesting in future to think how to go beyond that. Yeah, and what does it mean to maybe think about a self in a more like a collective way, or maybe confront this depoliticization of the public sphere that we are all facing. Yeah, because this individualism, it's everything is kind of enclosed within the individual. Everyone is responsible for their own individual fate, and it's always kind of brought to this level of individual responsibility. Whereas the structures are larger, yeah, and they can only be approached collectively.
I agree that there is lots of things in contemporary society. So I see a huge field for you to work on, because it's not just consumerism. This is indeed this huge trend of self-improvement, self-design. So our world is very much designed, although I do not completely agree that it's so much individual. Actually, coming from this communist world, I'm sad to see how the Western, capitalist world is actually, how to say, there is not much space for individuality. You are, everything is kind of defined, what you are supposed to do, but although it is being described as an extremely individual, maverick, whatever, every kind of perfume is being promoted as something like extremely original. Although, of course, it's not the case. It's actually, people are doing same thing, people are dressing very similarly, and like it's more and more also because of this consumerist pressure. Is our behavior is actually being very normalized, and it's interesting. It's interesting to look at it. Why we like actually going on vacation? At least I do, because I like watching people. They sometimes actually go out of these schemes, and then they finally behave how they want to behave. And it can be awful, it can be very funny, but at least there is some authenticity there. So I think for an artist, from this, if someone has, and you do have this anthropological, sociological interests in the society, there is lots of things to observe, and to kind of, because your performances are based on very right and interesting observation of what is already going on, and you are just creating a kind of an absurd version of it. But, and there is one but, that there in contemporary art, actually observation and reflection are, I think, less valid than it used to be before. It's like to be a flaneur, even if you have time and money, it's not very, it's not so good gesehen. So it's like you're supposed to do something, you're supposed to do something good, like not really, critically, ironically, but just to do some good thing for people. This is a tendency I see. I think it's not easy for an artist actually to find his or her place in that. But I still value ironical observation, and I still saw that the society, our society, is very interesting now, actually, I think. And so for the performative, language of yours, there is still, lots of space, I think.
Yeah,
you're right, Ekaterina, that in a way it's an illusion that we are so individualistic, because we repeat some schemes, but maybe how we experience ourselves, maybe that's more about that we have this feeling that we are responsible as individuals, and we,
but aren't we
in the self-experience?
No? How can you get rid of that? You are an individual, even if you want to, go out of the, prison of your head and body, you cannot do that. So
I guess, yeah. Probably the only, I don't have a clear answer, but if I would improvise something, I would say maybe that would be to see yourself in connection with the others and some specific groups, and kind of see that I'm not, I'm not only the one responsible for my fate, but there is this larger structure, this group that kind of creates the conditions in which I exist. Yeah.
Responsible for it. It's unfortunate the politics, the global corporations, and you definitely should not blame yourself for being responsible in action. So
I have problems. Can you repeat this, Ekaterina?
yeah, so I actually think, Aneta, you said, if I understood right, that you are not the only responsible for your fate. There is also the group of people around you. But the group of people around you is not responsible for your fate. Who is responsible for your fate is the state, the church, the corporations. That are people. And of course, the contemporary psychology teaches us that we are responsible of our fate. This is not true. So unfortunately, there are lots of things that are beyond our control. And we have to, instead of trying to improve ourselves, we have to improve the order of the world we are living in, and we are spending too much time by criticizing ourselves, especially women, of course, that we are not good enough. And this has been imposed on us, on this order that is shifting responsibility from, and this how is unfortunately the psychoanalysis plays its reactionary role now, because you're starting to explore your roots instead of, going and, protesting with. So that is, I think there are, for me, very interesting phenomena going on in contemporary society. And of course, we are part of society. I wouldn't worry that we are not collective enough. Do you want it or not? You are part of collectives, even on a bus, or everywhere. And but how this society actually does function, where what is kind of what we are brainstorm in society, let's say a totalitarian one, brainwashed, sorry, we are brainwashed on many, many levels. And and to see how the behavior of people is influenced by that. So I'm trying to observe as much as I can. So what people do now, how they want to present themselves, that society imposes on us, like what is considered good, what is okay to be, what is not okay to be. Of course, you are supposed. Now it's a new trend. It used to be that we were supposed to be very busy. You had to be busy. You had to say that I'm very busy. It means that you are kind of a valuable person. Now it's more important to say, no, I take my time. I'm listening to my moods. I'm listening to it's very fashionable to have mental problems. Everybody is supposed to be either autistic or like something else. And yes, of course, if we think, of course, we'll discover something like that in us. So now it's important to be vulnerable. So it's like another story, and how those vulnerable people against non-vulnerable people who are waiting in line behind them. So this creates like another tensions in society, but those trends are changing. And hopefully it goes in the direction of more human society. Yes, I see this trend, but we also see that, wars explode on that background as well. So it's not like we are so great.
No, I totally agree. And I think it's also a challenge. Also, if you work in public space and would like to address these larger structures, these powers of state, corporation, and so on, but you are still this individual performance artist in public space, I think it's quite challenging. I just reminded myself there was this British comic, Joe Lycett, that for a while adopted the name Hugo Boss as a kind of a way of critiquing the company, and did a lot of stuff on Twitter with it and so on. And it was quite funny, but to support his fight, how the company, I think, was treating copyright laws, or I don't remember the details, but I guess to find the connection between this therapeutic discourse and these orders, I find it quite challenging, but that maybe could be interesting for you, Katerina and Julia, in future. Yeah, we already were talking for 1 hour and a half, so I don't know, would you like to add something? Question to everybody.
The artist?
The artist, maybe.
I was thinking, do you hear me?
Yes.
I was, when we were developing auf dem Gepard, on the Jeopardy, auf dem Geparden, we had lots of discussions about, okay, we cannot get rid of this capitalistic system. So it's, I think at least it's a performance about self-optimization. And we start to, in a way, by overdoing it, we are criticizing this idea of self-optimization in a way, but maybe we didn't really criticize it. We also say, okay, it's what we can do now because we don't have another proposal. That was,
or it's this proposal, it's this new space that we are founding to over-exaggerate it. And, it's kind of the same. It's just taking the behaviors, what we already did, to its extremum, to its absurdity, but still we are proposing it to the society or to our audience as, okay, this is the way how you can really ride the cheetah. And in our performance, the cheetah was like the capitalism. So this is the way that on the one hand, on the one eye, we are really serious with it, that you can really challenge the time and do everything what you want in less time. But on the same time, it becomes totally absurd doing that.
But also a bit joyful, no? There was a specific type, I think, of pleasure in doing all of that, and some disruptions to the system, of the supermarket, for example. So it has these several layers, I think, and that's good.
Yeah, maybe if you cannot change the things so easily, at least you can play.
I think it's more just revealing little things, revealing making more visible in the way when we are performing, we are making more visible a certain aspect of our society. Or even adding an idea, but it's not we are not activists also, and we are not politicians also. So we are using our aesthetic, our performative power to add, I think.
Okay, thank you so much, Ekaterina, for doing this.
Thank you. Great works with Aneta for this interesting conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ekaterina.
Have a nice rest of the day.
Bye.